I'm absolutely. Yeah.
Do you have power for it?
I'll just. Do I have one? Yeah.
Okay. You should have it plugged in because it's gonna chug it. Please take a seat if you see any. I see like 2 over here, 1 over there, 1 in the back that somebody's standing and holding. If there's any other available chairs, please find a seat. It'd be great. We're going to get started. And we always start our meetings with an opening prayer. So would anybody here like to volunteer? Don't raise your hand all up at once. Yes.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the state of Africa. We're very grateful for this opportunity we have to be here and to learn more, and that we can be surrounded by such wonderful people, that we have the resources here, as here at BYU-Idaho. And that we talk to you, that's the thing.
All right, so thank you everybody for coming today. My name is Matthew. I am the chair of ACM. It's the Association for Computing Machinery. What we do here is we just basically have great topics that we talk about in technology during Forum Hour, and then we also have societies that have that do activities and projects in other hours. So we'll get started. First, I want to talk to you about how we communicate. So a lot of you haven't been to ACM before, but we send emails out through the department secretary. Even for CIT, we do that as well. We have weekly posters, at least in this department. The policy for the Smith building, I think, is a little bit different on posters. We send out emails to people who have registered through here. So if you want to get emails from ACM about other cool topics or presentations and stuff like this, then that's a great place to go. You're sure to get information from us there. We also have a chat room, and it's on Slack, and there's a lot of crazy discussions that go on there, and it's a lot of fun. I can come back to this slide, but we want to all listen to Brother Helfrich soon, so we're going to cruise through this. All right? So today's topics, we'll start with our committee report, then we'll have Brother Helfrich present. So what we do is we have our committees, they talk about what they have accomplished, their progress on their existing projects, and the direction that they're going, problems, and so forth. So that way everybody can be accountable and so forth. So now we'll start. Is John around? John Oakberry? Okay, I can stand in for him. John is the guy who is responsible for getting our presentations lined up. I think that there's like no room for anybody else to come in here. Maybe.
Yeah, there's 2 seats over here.
Yeah. So. So he's responsible for making sure that our presentations are lined up and that we always have an interesting topic, and he takes feedback from the ACM members for what we're going to do next. And I believe next week is going to be a presentation by Brother Grimmett on Python. If you want to learn how to program at a higher level, then you can come over and learn Python from Brother Grimmett. Okay? So the next thing is that we will also have a report from our Projects and Activities Committee, and that is taken care of by Doug, and Doug's right over there.
So for the AI, the observational learning AI, which is basically where they're going to have AI look at a video game, see how they can see how to play it or something like that. That's been approved. The map app, that was put on an indefinite hold due to maybe some legality stuff for the details of the things. We also approved for the VR projects. We haven't decided what exactly the VR is going to do, or what kind of VR project to do, but we are going forward with that. Then we're also doing a project, basically it's a competition for it. It's more of a design your own little video game. We'll give you a theme within its specifications, like once so you make me like 3 competitions for the whole semester. So like it'll be like retro gaming, like make a Pong or something simple like that for projects. So that's what we have for the projects this week.
Thank you. So we have lots of exciting stuff that going on over there. We have our online committee, and that's done by TJ, and he can talk about what's going on in that realm of ACM.
Okay, so for the online committee, we're in charge of the website and also with the communications between all the online students. Our meetings are on Mondays at 4:30. Everybody's welcome to come. As far as progress, this last Monday we had our meeting, and we were able to discuss the timeline for the website. So we're planning about 8 weeks to have something up and running for everybody can access it. So this week we're going to have a meeting and we're going to vote on the final design before we actually start development. So if you'd like, come with an idea, come with a design, kind of a risk assessment, see what your timeline would be, and feel free to join us on Monday. Anybody have any questions?
Okay.
It'll be in 412. 412. Oh no, 212. Here in the Austin building.
The room over there. It's right next to us.
That one.
Okay. Thank you. So next we'll have a report from our Artificial Intelligence Committee.
Yes, do you mind if I steal your video feed real fast?
Yeah, let's see if it doesn't screw up the screen.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't.
Our projector here likes to resize the aspect ratio in the most unhelpful way. So,
Okay. Why is it not showing the...
It's set as a dual monitor, so you have
it's
to drag
extended
it over.
desktop.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, you
Just gotta drag your window over, dude.
All right. I see you. Yeah, it's coming this way. Yeah, it's full screen, and now I can't.
The black bar at the very top.
Oh, okay.
Hold on.
I'm just not used to his mouse.
We got this.
Okay.
We got it.
Okay. All right. So, what we are doing in the AI committee, just to get our feet wet a little with artificial intelligence, is we are programming an artificial intelligence that will play the Warlight AI. There is a starter bot that there's starter bot packages for different programming languages, and our goal is to be able to beat the opponent starter bot within the next few weeks, and there will be prizes for our progress. We're actually kind of still discussing that with the Code Challenge Committee, but yeah, that's what we're doing in the AI Committee. And if you're looking for something to do, we will have a coding project for you. It'll all be geared towards this for now.
All right.
All right. Yep.
It's back, and then we'll spin this thing back up. And what's my stream looking like? It probably broke. Okay. Hide this. All right. So our Code Challenge Committee chair wasn't able to come today, but he has made a code challenge available online. It's a gosh dang it, I forget what the thing is called, what the challenge is. But I will be putting the URL to the link of that online, and so that way, not online, I'll be putting it on the whiteboard over there, so that way you can do it. And then when we finally get our website up and running, we'll actually operate our code challenges through various means, and we're still working on exactly how that will manifest. But it'll probably be really cool, and we need help doing that, so we'd love to have help on the online committee on that area. And so that is it for the report. One last thing, we are in need of a person that can do communications for the CIT department. We need a CIT communications officer. So in that spirit of things, I'm hoping that if any of you are interested in doing that, it's a leadership position. You'd be part of the ACM Leadership Society. You'd have a role in managing our online presence as well as our website, which is currently in development. And there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on in ACM, and I think you'd really enjoy it, really. So please come and speak to me afterwards, or stick around and I can tell you more about what those roles are. I can give you lots of details. And there is a line outside the door, so if we could somehow, without violating too much of the fire code, put more people in this room, that would be great. All right. So now we're lined up to do the main event, which is Brother Helfrich's presentation on cyber warfare. So I will turn the time over to him.
Thank you. Lights, please. All right. So I think it's useful to begin with a scripture. This is Alma chapter 2, verse 12 through 15. Wherefore the people of Nephites were aware of the intent of the Amalekites, and therefore they did prepare to meet them. Yea, they did arm themselves with swords and with centimeters and with bows and with arrows and stones and slings and all manner of weapons of war of every kind. And thus they were prepared to meet the Amalekites in the time of their coming. And they were appointed captains and higher captains and chief captains according to the number. And it came to pass the Amalekites did arm his men with all manner of weapons of war of every kind. And he also appointed rulers and leaders over his people to lead them to war against their brethren. I think that's fitting because we're talking just from the war chapters, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about warfare. In order for us to really talk about cybersecurity and cyber warfare, we first have to understand warfare in general. So I want you to humor me for a little bit as we do a brief history of how we've conducted war through the years. And once you understand that, you'll be able to see how cyber warfare relates to that. When we talk about each one of these areas, we're going to talk about the motivation. Why do people fight? And the tools they use, and the power that drove those tools, okay? The effect that their tools had, and finally, how we can defend themselves, okay? So we're going to start way back in the day. Remember Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness, and as he was traveling with the people of Israel, every now and then they come across the people that didn't want them to pass through. And they walked up nicely and talked to the chief and said, "Hey, look, we're not going to cause any trouble, I promise. We're just going to walk through." And most of the time they let them pass, but sometimes they didn't. Why did the people who decided not to let Moses pass through, why do they want to go to war against Moses, right? Why do people fight 4,000 years ago? What were their goals, right? And the answer is they want to steal. They want to take something that was not theirs. They wanted to spoil the cities and walk out with the riches, right? Oftentimes they wanted revenge. Oh, they wronged me. I'm going to give them some payback, right? And they wanted slaves. Yeah, that was usually the outcome of those battles, right? What tools did they use? What did Moses use? Did he use an Apache helicopter?
Would have been nice.
What did they use? What?
Rocks.
They used rocks, yeah. Anything else they used? Swords? Not quite yet. This was before the Bronze Age. They used pointy stuff.
Slings.
Yeah. What powered their weapons? Yeah, human, right? And animals, right? They ran people down occasionally, right? What was the effect? Death, right? That's it, right? I remember once, I was in the Navy. I remember one time we had this early morning drill, 6 o'clock in the morning. Imagine this, right? Had to dress up my monkey suit, 6 o'clock in the morning, march around, and we had a guest speaker, an admiral. He's going to talk to us, motivate us. 6 o'clock morning, Thursday morning in college, right? We were all trying to be awake because we knew if we fell asleep, we'd be punished, right? And this guy walked in and he said, "Could any of you guys tell me the purpose of the United States Navy?" We were like, for real? So I rose my hand, "You right there." And I said, "Sir, to kill people and break things." He's like, "What'd you say?" I said, "Project sea power ashore," which is the correct answer. But you have to understand that we didn't get to that to break things stuff until much later. Initially, all you could do with rocks and pointy stuff is kill people, right? So that was pretty much the only effect you had, right? After you killed people, then you could tear down their walls, but not before that. And so how do you defend yourselves against stuff like this?
Do the same thing.
Yeah, basically we're going to have an army which uses exactly the same tactics we use to attack, right?
More rocks and pointy things than the other side.
Right. Or maybe more muscle, right? But what else did the defense use that attack could not use? They use a wall, right? Specifically, a high wall. Right? The higher the wall, the better you are, right? They talk about the city of Babylon in ancient times was protected by a 60-foot wall, and that was considered insurmountable. 60-foot wall. Who knows how wide it was? Wide enough that you couldn't punch through it, I assume. Right? But that's pretty much it. Right? All right. Next big advance we have was Romans. Right? Why did Romans go to war?
Land. Big stuff.
Yeah, they wanted steel,
Tax money or something?
right? They wanted slaves, but they also wanted control, right? And that's what we're talking about taxes and about, extortion, stuff like that. So they have a little different motivation because they're going to not only are they going to wipe people out, but they're going to install a new government and they're going to make them work for it. They're going to send all the riches to Rome, which became a grand city, right? And what tools do they use?
Swords.
Right? Swords.
Spears.
And arrows and pointy stuff, right? And how do they power it? Same, except, so what do you say, muscles? And levers. Yes, levers. Because they use trebuchets, right? They use bows and arrow, right? They're going to store, release, which gave them a far more better reach than before, right? And what was the effect?
More death.
Yeah, that's right. That's pretty much it. Still human power, still muscle power. There's only so much you can break with that, just death. And how did you defend against that? Yeah, same stuff. Army and walls, nothing else, right? Now, in the 1300s, things changed, right? What did they use in the 1300s?
Crossbows.
Crossbows is the same stuff as the arrows, right? We're still using levers, but what else do we use? Cannons. Yes. And this is interesting. It's actually the 28th of January, 1132 is the first recorded use of a cannon against in battle, and it was a revolution because suddenly those walls came down. Right? We had these strongholds that were previously impenetrable, and now suddenly they were blasted away in just a few hours of firepower. Something the muscles could not do, right? And so the power was gunpowder. And then they used the same stuff as before, and their motivation was exactly the same as the Romans had, right? And the effect was death and destruction. All right, and what's your defense? Not bigger walls. That didn't work.
More gunpowder?
You want an army, of course, and you also want slanted walls. Slanted walls don't really help you when you're against muscle power because you just scale them real easy. But if you have a slanted wall, that could deflect. And now saying the energy that you project with a shell would get pointed down and would not move the rock. And suddenly you have these castles that were not basically circles with big battlements on the side, but rather star-shaped. So there's no place you could direct a cannon fire that would directly hurt people, right? So it was a big revolution in how we design castles, but still it was essentially the same. Now, World War I, things changed again, right? What did they use in World War I?
Bolt action rifles. Tanks.
Bullets,
Machine guns.
right? What does a tank do?
Bigger bullets.
Fights bigger bullets, right? You could run people down, I guess, right? Same thing chariots did, but a little more efficiently, right? And you had planes, but really, what did planes do? Drop bombs. Yes, right? How does a bomb kill you? Shrapnel does. Yeah, it's shrapnel, right? I mean, a concussion a little bit, but what it does is it takes little bits and pieces and flings them at you, so it becomes like bullets all over the place, right? But essentially, it's the same thing, right? And they use something else. Gas. This is the first example we have of non-kinetic weapons. First time you're going to get hurt, not by something hitting you, but some other means, right? And you can argue we used biological warfare in the 1800s against the Indians with smallpox. And there was some examples in the 1300s of taking animals that were infected with the plague and catapulting them over the wall of the castle, and they die that way. But for the most part, this is the first wide-scale use of non-kinetic weapons. Okay? Right? And what's the power? What powers World War I? Gas does not provide impetus. The gas got there with gunpowder. So we still have gunpowder, right? For the first time we're using oil. And that's what powers our airplanes and our tanks. And that becomes our battleships too, and that becomes more important, right? Good, good, good. And the effect is destruction and death. What's the defense? Slanted walls?
Nope.
No, that doesn't help. Trenches. And armies. right? And what's our motivation? Why did we fight World War I?
Someone died somewhere.
A bit of revenge. That's not really what motivated it. What's that? I heard it.
Control.
Control. Yes, yes, yes. We're not stealing anymore because there's nothing left and we're done. Everything's destroyed. Right? We're trying to impose will. I don't believe there was any incidence of slaves in World War I, so we're going to change our motivation, aren't we? Right? What happened to the next Great War? Right? Motivation? Control. Tools? Bigger everything. Right. Power. This plus nuclear. Right? The effects.
Death and destruction.
Death and destruction. How do you defend against that?
No one really. Well, against like atomic weapons? Alliances?
Armies is really the only way. You gotta meet them with the same force you're attacked with, right? Walls, trenches did not work one bit in World War II. I think the French tried to do it. They tried a big old trench called the Maginot Line, right? And what did the Nazis do? They walked around it, right? It's a very mobile world, right? But essentially it's the same thing. All right. The Cold War. Right? What's the point here? Control. What tools do they use?
Information.
Here. They use the same stuff plus info, sure.
But
And fear. Yeah.
Information.
Power. Same stuff as before, right? The effect was intimidation as well as destruction and death, right? Intimidation is that part of the fear bit. And the main defense was deterrence. Now, everything's going to change. And that's kind of the whole point of this talk here. In the cyber, okay, what's the motivation here?
Control.
Destruction?
Control.
Steal.
Control. Can I control you with a cyber weapon? Take home like, oh, my computer's taken over. Big deal. Turn it off. Yes?
Economies and information.
Economies, maybe, right? So here, really, the motivation for most of our cyber warfare we've seen so far is to punish. Right? We're going to get some payback for some other culture that has wronged us. I'm not trying to control them. I'm not trying to steal, for the most part. I'm not trying to make a slave out of you. I'm trying to punish. A little bit of revenge, right? Also, I want to intimidate.
Yep.
Right? And this is what happens a lot in the economic world with espionage. With blackmail. You know what? If you don't give me a lot of money, I'm going to shut down your site, and you will have zero income for the next couple days, and there's nothing you can do about it. Right? And then finally, and we do a little bit of steal, I guess, and threaten a little bit. What tools do we use?
Computers.
Not computers. Software. I'm not going to send my computer to you and say, please buy it. Right? All right? Now, this is the hard one. Human race. What powers?
Humans. Everybody.
Humans? No.
Communications.
No. Scriptures?
Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi? Yes. The technology power. Elaborate. Yes, and that's going to be our vehicle here. But let's say that I take over your computer. How does that hurt me? How is that going to cause me to be punished or intimidate me, or how are you going to steal my assets? But information by itself is at rest. You see, if I'm not convinced that a cyber attack is going to hurt me, I'm going to ignore it. What is the source of a cyber attack? What are they trying to do?
If the information is of great importance to you and its use would harm or affect you, or its damage, loss would harm or affect you, because there's both economical and business impacts.
Yeah. So if you steal my secrets,
Yeah.
steal my money, maybe, sure. Yes?
I don't know. Okay, so I can only think of stealing by like taking like technology or like using
information for your benefit. You know, that's another thing. But
Yeah, and it is a little bit of what we do here, right? But if one nation is going to fight another nation using cyber weapons, they're not going to coerce them into accepting an unfavorable treaty by stealing their information. They're not going to cause the equivalent to an invasion, right? It's got to be something bigger. Why do we care? Yes?
I would say the infrastructure, like the nation security system.
So right, infrastructure is definitely the answer. You see, the thing is that if another nation was going to attack America, one of the main things they would do is attack our power grid. Okay? They're not going to steal your bill. Right? Instead, they're going to cause it to self-destruct. You see? So they're using us to defeat us. We give them power because we mobilized our economy with information. And they're going to use us to defeat ourselves. In the traditional world, everything up here, if you have two people fighting, one person is going to punch the other one. In the new world, I'm going to punch myself. And that is how cyber warfare is carried out today. I'm hurting myself. I'm sending instructions over that will cause me to cause damage to
So I
myself.
thought about this. If we get self-driving cars and everyone they hack into the cars and just drive everyone into each other and kill each other, is that kind of what
That's
you're talking
exactly
about?
the kind of things we're talking about with cyber warfare. Can anyone think of other examples? Yes.
EMP.
Okay, EMP is actually this rail, right? For those of you who don't know what EMP is, let me describe this to you. We are rolling down, this is the very end of outdoor nuclear testing, 1968. We have found these beautiful islands in the South Pacific called the Bikini Atoll, where bikinis were invented. Seriously, why would we do that? And we kept detonating bigger and bigger and bigger bombs to figure out how they reacted to ships and how we could defend ourselves against them and all sorts of things. We were pretty ignorant. A lot of people died of bone cancer, particularly a nasty way to go. But anyways, and we signed a treaty with the Soviets saying we're going to stop doing this. They said, okay. I said, okay, we have one more month. They said, okay. So they quickly detonated a bunch of bombs, and we did too. This was the very last test we were going to do. One of the guys said, I got an idea. Let's take a bomb and throw it as high as we can and detonate it and see what happens. Why? Because that's all the time we have left, and we have one more bomb. This really happened. So they put a bomb on a relatively small tactical nuke. They put it on an airplane. They took it up like this in a parabolic trajectory. The airplane got out of Dodge. The bomb went up and up and up and up, 80,000 feet, and it detonated, right? And what happened 4,500 miles away in Honolulu? The grid shut down. And people had no idea why. Because no one saw the blast, no one felt the blast. But suddenly, all their computers and all electronics were fried. And that's when we discovered what EMP was. Electromagnetic pulse. It's to send a light burst in something in a frequency we can't see, which will put enough energy into your electronics that all those tiny little wires will become a magnet and will fry it. Okay? So most military hardware is EMP hardened to prevent this from happening. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. Mostly makes computers slow. But yes, this is still in the death and destruction range. Right? This is a way you can destroy someone's ability to fight without hurting humans. So it's more like just the destruction, not the death part. Right? But that's actually not cyber warfare. That's conventional warfare. Yes?
Put down ability for food or other things to be transported to states like Las Vegas relies on people.
Right. So if I'm able to shut down their transportation infrastructure, then suddenly that society is vulnerable. If someone attempted to do this, 100 years ago, when most of the food you got was within walking distance, it wouldn't be a big deal. But our culture has become dependent, right? You go to a supermarket, you buy some bananas. I defy you to buy bananas that are grown within 1,000 miles of where you live. In fact, most things in the grocery store are not grown within 1,000 miles of where you live, right? Way back in the day, you only cooked food that was in season. Now you cook food regardless of season because it gets transported from South America. when it doesn't happen to be in season now, we are vulnerable because of that. Yes?
I think you already touched on it a little bit, but I think a good way to make someone hit themselves digitally, I guess, is in our electricity. A lot of dams are on grids, so if they shut our dams down, we don't have electricity anymore, or they just let all the water through. They can open up massive valves that are in dams, and it lets all the water through.
Right. So if we can trick the dam into destroying themselves, that's an example of cyber warfare. If we destroy the dam with a bomb, that's old school.
Right.
And that's where we draw the line. And so the thing is, to do it with a bomb, I have to put myself at risk. Right? Now, in the cyber world, I don't need to. In fact, I can do it without anyone even knowing who done it. I saw a hand over there. Yeah. Yes. I can send it. Hey, everyone, there's an emergency everywhere, right? And suddenly, the real emergencies are never dealt with. Denial of service attack. Another great example of cyber attack. Yeah.
We've been talking about like power and effect a lot. What is the difference in cyber warfare?
Right. Well, actually, I'm going to jump on here to the effects. There are three main effects we have in cyber warfare. Our number one, espionage. Okay. I'm going to steal information. And we've been doing this for a long time. It's just now we don't have to put our funny hats on and sneak around at night and pass on a microfiche. Now we can simply just log in, right? Number two is sabotage, which is mostly we've been focusing our attention on. And the third is denial. Those are our three main attack avenues in cyber warfare. Okay?
Denial?
Denial, yes. I'm going to prevent you from getting emergency services. I can prevent you from getting food. I can prevent you from having access to your phone, right? Denial attacks. Okay? Now, the way we prevent these things are firewalls, air walls, and hardening. Okay, so right now, we get instructions and data from around the world coming into America without being checked. I defy you to ship a piece of fruit into America without it being checked. But a program, no problem. Just come on in. It's big old honking pipes of data sending stuff from China, from Japan, and none of it's checked. None of it's checked. It comes right in, right? The Chinese don't do this. If they can't verify a packet, they throw it out, right? What do we call that?
The Great Firewall of China.
The Great Firewall of China, right? Now, true, it has holes in it, and true, it can be circumvented, but it's for the most part successful. They can flip one or two switches, and all data entering China or leaving China can be cut off. We cannot do that in America. There's a couple countries they still can do that. Egypt is one, Pakistan is one, but Iran is one, small countries, right? America cannot do that. We are far too connected. It's very difficult to make a firewall that's able to keep the bad out and keep the good in, right? An air wall is the primary tactic we use today. We want to make sure that vital machinery, such as the power generator and the gate supply system at Hoover Dam, is not connected to the internet, right? So the only way you could possibly get in there to do it is to launch a traditional old school attack. Go in there with an operative and plant an explosive device or a electronic device, right? And hardening is the process of making sure that data is treated like data, not interpreted as instructions. Only valid instructions go through. That's what software engineering is all about, is trying to harden, right? Good. Questions about this new world? Yeah.
So just a clarifying question about the definition of cyber warfare.
Yes.
So I have two kind of ideas in my head, and you can tell me they're the same idea or you tell me they're different. Which one are we talking about?
Sure.
So I have the idea of like the DDoS for Bitcoin people that are like extortionists. That,
yes.
We will take down your website, we'll deny traffic to your website if you do not give us this much money.
Yes.
Or you've got cyber warfare like the Chinese government announcing attacks against some other country. And I feel like they're different, but are they the same or are they?
So it is the same. The difference is the scope. Just like it's the same of whether you have two brothers fighting in Moses' time versus you have armies. They're using the same tactics. They're trying to accomplish the same thing. The difference is only scale. Now, from a moral standpoint, there is a difference as well. Okay? Thou shalt not kill. Right? unless you have permission. Right?
Yes.
And that's what the Army and the police give you. They give you permission. Permission to do things otherwise illegal, right? So the difference we have between ad hoc cyber warfare, between hackers, between extortionists, the cyber mafia, stuff like that, and organized is simply a matter of scale and whether you have state permission. And we're going to see the Chinese have a little bit blurred the line there, and so do the Iranians, but the tactics are absolutely the same. Now, if I'm going to be a cyber criminal, my motivation is money, right? If I'm a cyber warfare operative, my motivation is not money. Almost always my motivation is control. Fundamental difference there. Sometimes the mafia can turn control of the money by making you pay up, but China is not asking for money right now. Right, they already have it. They're looking for control. Okay? Okay. Other questions about that? Yeah.
Are there any current defenses inside America to prevent something such as a fire sale?
Yeah. We have, and we'll talk about this in a minute here. There are 11 countries that have cyber armies to do stuff like this. And we're going to talk about why they were created, what they do, and how you can join one. Okay. Cyber warfare, as we know, began in 2007. That's the first recorded instance we have of cyber warfare. Whereas there was cyber espionage, people use computers to do bad things before, but that's not cyber warfare. Cyber warfare is down here, right? Cyber warfare began in 2007 in the former Soviet Republic of Estonia, okay? Estonia was a small little country about the size of Madison County with Bonneville County associated with it. All right, they have like one city, one of the Baltic republics, okay? And they got conquered here in World War II by the Soviets. The Soviets said, hey, we're attacking the Nazis, but the Nazis weren't there. It was totally a land grab by Joseph Stalin. Why? Because he wanted a port, he wanted influence, he wanted extortion, and that's what he did, right? And so for years, the Baltic republics were enslaved by the Soviets. Until 1989, the wall started going down. 1990, they were the second Soviet republic to be freed after Lithuania, okay? And they were psyched. They had freedom for the first time. And immediately they did what any people do when they were free for the first time. They prospered. And all this pent-up energy, you know? And so they built a modern society built on computers. And it was awesome, right? Fast forward to 2005, and they're feeling pretty independent. The Soviet Union is long gone, right? And they said, you know what? We're going to get rid of our old Soviet relics, including this huge statue downtown of, and I can't pronounce this guy's name, Talinian. They call the bronze soldier Talinian. It's a kind of symbol of the Soviet Union, sort of like the sickle and hammer, sort of like our bald eagle is for us, right? And so we're going to get rid of this because it signifies 40 years of oppression. So we want to get rid of it. So they voted, yeah, we're going to get rid of it. And Russia says, you better not. And we said, excuse me, last I heard, I'm independent, right? Except remember, Russia is huge, Estonia is this big, so it's like, excuse me, right? But they thought they'd get away with it, right? And so what they do, they chopped down the statue, redid the square, put something else in the way, and then for the next 3 days, their infrastructure was shut down. Banking, traffic lights, paramedics, phone system shut down for 3 days. I mean, it was like the Stone Age for them. Seriously, right? And the whole world was like, what happened there? It took years to figure it out, and it wasn't until 2011 that Russia admitted they did it. But the Estonians knew, because they knew the threats and they knew where the data was coming from. First example. So the Estonian parliament was shut down, their banks, their ministries, which is their government organizations, their newspapers, their broadcasters, all of that shut down for 3 days.
Do you think they did it mostly just because they could show their power and show we can do this now because it's a country that couldn't defend themselves basically against them?
Yeah, it was totally an intimidation tactic. They want to say that you are in our sphere of influence, right?
What was it, putting like the states in China, like states and other countries in their place, basically as well?
Yeah. So Lithuania definitely paid attention, and the next time that they're that Putin said, "Hey, I think you should do this," they said, "Okay." Right? And that's one of the problems we have today. I'm going to go off script a little bit. It's one of the problems today. We don't really have a functioning world government. So what happens when you have inter-nation conflict? Ad hoc. You know, if they're popular, if they have a resource, then the world comes to save them. But if they're not, they get left to their own devices, and that's what happened here. No country felt like they could stand up to them. Now, a couple of years later, Estonia joined NATO, and that would be a different deal. Okay. All right. Next year, Russia began cyber attacks on the Georgian government because they were having conflicts with Georgia, and they were involved in both a military conflict with them, but they also involved in an information conflict, and that really helped a little bit. And by the way, here's an example of how we use information in the traditional world. This is a story that was on. I'm off script again. Forgive me. I love telling stories, especially military stories. They're so exciting, right? This is an example how we can use. This was not a traditional cyber warfare. This was a kind of a physical warfare, but the same kind of idea. First Persian Gulf War. The SEAL Team 6 had a small group of 5 infiltrators that snuck into Iraq just before the Desert Storm began. Okay? And they had their guns, and they had their backpacks, and they had their Hummers, and they're going in there, right? And they also had a printer. Okay? They had a printer. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. They snuck in the middle of the night to one of the remote missile facilities, and they took out the old printer and installed a new one that looked exactly the same, and they left. Anyone want to guess what happened? They what? They didn't get copies of anything. No, it was a closed network. It wasn't connected to anything.
Did the printer print off wetness?
No.
It printed different orders than what they were supposed to.
Wouldn't that be fun? No, it was even more malicious than that. Yeah. It had malware on it. Infected their closed network that shut them down hours before we came in with our airplanes.
Dirty.
Isn't that fun? Yeah. So you needed something. I mean, Russia did something similar to Georgia just before during their conflict. Okay. 2009, next year, during a routine computer audit of our power grid, we discover malware on our power grid. Okay? This power grid is malware is dormant. It's waiting for a trigger. And when that trigger happens, our power grid's going to shut down. We find 2 different copies. One of them that has Russian function names, one that has Chinese function names. Isn't that fun? On a word, they can shut us down. We're not sure exactly the extent. We're not sure how they would get the word, but we're sure we were vulnerable. And right now, in INL, just over here in the desert, they do a lot of research to figure out how to protect our information and power infrastructure from such attacks as that. Okay? 2009. 2010. 2010, something else comes up. I'm going to put it there.
In June last year, a computer virus called Stuxnet was discovered lurking in the data banks of power plants, traffic control systems, and factories around the world. 20 times more complex than any previous virus code, it had an array of capabilities. Among them, the ability to turn up the pressure inside nuclear reactors or switch off oil pipelines, and Stuxnet could tell the system operators everything was normal. Unlike most viruses, Stuxnet doesn't carry the usual forged security clearance that helps viruses burrow into systems. It actually had a real clearance, stolen from one of the most reputable computer technology companies in the world. It exploited security gaps that system creators are unaware of. These holes are known as 0 days, and the most successful viruses exploit them. The details of a 0 day can be sold on the black market for $100,000. Stuxnet took advantage of 20 0 days. But once it got into a system, it didn't always activate. Buried deep in the Stuxnet code was a specific target. Without that target, the virus remained dormant. What was it looking to shut down? The centrifuges that spin nuclear material at Iran's enrichment facilities. Stuxnet was a weapon, the first to be made entirely out of code. The Washington-based Institute for Science and International Security says the virus may have shut down 1,000 centrifuges at Natanz, Iran's main enrichment facility, last year. In November, the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog, said Iran had suspended work at its nuclear facilities without explaining why. Many observers credited Stuxnet. Last month, the Iranian government conceded the virus's infection of the Bashir nuclear facility, still under construction, meant that switching the plant on could lead to a national electricity blackout. Iran has responded to the attack with an open call for hackers to join the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and has reportedly amassed the second largest online army in the world. So who was behind Stuxnet? There's no evidence beyond rumor. Some have it that Israel is responsible because the virus code apparently contains references to the Hebrew Bible. Others believe the US was involved in the testing and development. The finger has even been pointed at Siemens mobile phone company, whose software is used by the Iranian regime. The most important question may not be who designed it, but who will redesign it. The evolution has been so fast that 9 months after its detection, the first virus that could crash power grids or destroy oil pipelines is available online for anyone to download and tinker with. You can watch people on YouTube pulling Stuxnet apart. It's an open source weapon, and there's no way of knowing who will use it or what they will use it for.
Whoa.
Okay, so we now have 11 countries that have a cyber army. India in 2004 created the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. Germany created the Cyber Defense Station in 2013. The Netherlands. The cyber defense is nationally coordinated by the National Cyber Security Center. The UK, under the MI6, they I love these guys. They defaced an Al-Qaeda website that gave training to their operatives to replace how to make a pipe bomb with a recipe to make cupcakes. In 2005, Iran created the Iranian Cyber Army from the Revolutionary Guard, and in 2013 it's become the 4th biggest cyber power, and according to that video it's a little bit larger now. South Korea has a cyber warfare command. North Korea has 3,000, quote, highly trained hackers. Israel is their exact capabilities are unknown, but they're widely credited with having created Stuxnet. China, between 1995 and 2008, they had this loosely organized coalition of hackers, students, malcontents, whatever, and turned a blind eye, gave them money, gave them resources for the purpose of mostly espionage, but a little bit of cyber warfare, right? But that all changed shortly after that, and now they have what many people believe to be the largest organized official cyber army. Okay. Russia, they're coordinated by the Russian Signal Intelligence, which is currently a part of the FSB, whatever that means, part of the 6th Regiment of the KGB. And they're under the Russian Ministry of Internal Affairs. And it wasn't until 2010 that we have had developed a cyber army. It's under the U.S. Cyber Command, and it's under the United States Air Force. So, question: what does cyber warfare look like in the future? Okay. Now, think back to these days right here, World War II. Germany believed they'd be better off by invading France, because it's happened many times before, right? But today, Germany's not going to be fans because if they win, they're still going to lose because their economies are so well tied, right? China, they're developing a new, they just laid the keel for the third aircraft carrier, right? But they can't attack us because if they fight us, they're going to lose more than we win because our economies are so intertwined. If you think about the number of nations that can actually fight a kinetic warfare, it's actually very small because you will lose. Because all the things you're trying to do, you will actually get further behind because our economies are so intertwined. I believe that aside from a few regional conflicts and a few people who are outside the grid, like Cuba, no, maybe not anymore, North Korea, you know, a couple of Arab countries and a couple of African countries, kinetic warfare is a thing of the past. It doesn't make sense. So how are you going to exert influence in the future? The answer is cyber warfare. By extortion, by intimidation, right? By threats, right? Because that's the way we can project influence without the corresponding damage to our economies, which is what we're the real reason why we're doing it. Colonel Powell was a lieutenant in the Army in the late 50s, okay? And his job was to protect a 20-meter wide part of the German border against the East German border against the Soviet attack. And he said famously, I must have done my job well, because in the 6 months I was assigned that position, not a single Soviet soldier crossed the line. Okay? Later, he became a general that was associated with 100 miles on of the East German border, and he says, I must have been a great general, because not a single Soviet soldier crossed the line, right? Because that's what we do in the old world. We create lines that prevent people from attacking. So you don't have to create a wall around your house or around your business, like you had to do in medieval times when we didn't have well-developed borders, right? He said, today, I cannot offer you a wall because the wall comes to you. Someone from the Ukraine can attack you right now, or your company, or your business, because we have no firewall protecting us, right? It's a completely different ballgame. So what does that mean for you? How can you, do you want to be a member of the cyber army? You know? Do you want to be the next generation of warriors? Right? And you can. Yeah. Because it turns out that this, Southeast Idaho, is the hotbed of development for cyber warfare. It is. Can you believe it? It's true. Yes. The reason for that is because one of the co-authors of this book, which is one of the first books we have on the subject, Information Operations, is a guy named Dr. Corey Scow. And he's a professor at ISU, and he's in charge of the cybersecurity program. It's not security like you're going to learn in CIT, where you learn how to harden the network to protect a company's resources. It's not security like you're going to learn here in software engineering to protect your software from incursions, to do code hardening. Instead, it's about cyber weapons. And 100% of their graduates through their master's program get hired by the NSA for $130,000 a year on average. 100%. Okay. Now we're talking. Questions? Yes, sir.
What is the biggest cyber war that you are aware of and who can say?
Right. So the biggest incident we have of cyber warfare right now is the Stuxnet, right? Stuxnet, whatever, however you pronounce it. No one even knows how you pronounce it. It was done because most people believe now it's done because Israel realized it would be too expensive politically and economically to launch a traditional attack. They were planning on it. They trained for it. They knew what it would cost and what it would take to do it. The problem was the Iranians built their reactor underground. So they had to put a very, very big bomb in a very precise location. And they were ready to do it. But they realized if they used this information weapon, which was transported by a thumb drive, that they could have much bigger effect with much less effort. So that was the biggest example we have today of cyber warfare. Yes?
So question about cyber army.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm correct, but like cyber warfare is not a symmetric costing net.
Not at all. I mean, these were, right? Because I had the same person who attacks is people who defend.
Yeah.
But it's not anymore.
So, I mean, like,
yeah.
what would someone in a cyber army do other than, like what you mentioned, code hardening or hardening a network? What can you do defensively?
Probably 1% are going to be the offensive people making these new generation of weapons, right? The other 99% are going to find ways to protect our infrastructure in such a way we won't hurt ourselves.
So, like, how is that different from code hardening and network hardening? I guess is kind of the question.
The difference is that I know it's the assets you're protecting. Like for an example, for Target, you want to protect your credit cards, your transactions, stuff like that, right? But now what we want to do is we want to protect our infrastructure, a place that a hacker would never think to attack. Because in the last 30 years, we've been finding a way to computerize our infrastructure to make it more efficient without thought of how to make it secure. And going back and fixing all that is a big deal. But also, trying to make the Great Firewall of America so that we can shut off attacks from other countries, that would also be a very interesting avenue. Yes?
Now, is it kind of like deterrent has now come back in the sense that, like, you were talking about China and how they were, how they can crash our economy,
Yep.
You know, at the press of a button almost.
Yep.
And we can also do that to them. And so does it just like, is it like an economy deterrent now instead of like a nuclear weapon deterrent?
That's a good question. The deterrence is a multifaceted part of it. I don't think they're going to blackmail our economy, because if trade between China and America went to zero, our economy would cut by a quarter, and theirs would cut by half. We are far less dependent on them than they are on us, and I think they know that, right? But the difference is, if I'm going to launch a traditional attack, it's very easy to tell where I came from. With a cyber attack, I have plausible deniability. No one yet knows for sure who launched these various attacks we talked about today. We just have some evidence to suggest. Okay.
I got a follow-up.
Yeah.
Would nowadays, are they going to start, like, would they ever do a traditional attack by first preceding it with a cyber attack? Like, they do a very big cyber attack on a country, and then a traditional kind of follow-up attack. And would that ever, like, happen in the future? Like, is that kind of what might come in the future?
I can't see someone with an economic motive launching a kinetic attack anytime in the future. I just don't see it happening. But I can see people with a doctrine or they're like the jihad motivation doing it, because they don't want to take control of that country. They want to see them burn. To quote Batman. Yeah.
So outside of nation against nation, is there a law enforcement organized?
Yes, there absolutely is laws against that, and we can learn about it in a CS computer security class. Unfortunately, most of the attacks are cross borders, and countries like Ukraine, which have a very large number of highly trained people that have no jobs, the government is unwilling to enforce laws. That's where they all come from. So, am I out of time?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
It stayed down finally. So thank you everybody for coming. We're grateful that we can have Brother Helfrich give such an excellent presentation. And I'm hoping that if any of you are from CIT, then I could have an opportunity, or you might be interested to be part of the communications committee. We need to have somebody who can help us send out news and make people in the CIT department aware of our ongoing activities, because next semester, I believe we're going to share the same building, right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. We're going to be sharing the same building, and we're going to be in the same space, and it'd be great for us to be able to get everything sorted out before that happens, and so that way we know exactly what's going on and stuff like that, and we have a relationship, and that would be fantastic. So I'd love to have you guys in here, and if this projector ever decides to turn back on, that would be also really good. There it goes. So thank you for coming. Our next presentation will be on Python by Brother Grimmett, who is our department chair. And I want everybody to take a moment to thank John Wokelberry for helping set up our presentations and stuff like that. And believe me, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and he did a really good job setting it up in such a short period of time, so it's been really awesome. And thank you, Brother Helfrich, for being here and giving us a presentation. I believe all of us are very intrigued about the nefarious side of the internet, and we'll probably end up doing our own little looky-loos. So if anybody has any questions for ACM or for committee members, they can stick around. Otherwise, you're free to go. Thank you for coming. And this never turned on. That's stupid. There it goes. Oh.
Coming next week? You coming next week? Yeah.
And again, CIT people, please, we need somebody. We really do. Yeah.
I'm kind of sick. Really? So I'm like pretty new to the major though, so I'm not really sure how much I can do.